A few of our people died because their houses were attacked. Some died from car explosions. We were not the only liberation movement that was housed in Zambia.
From other countries?
The
Or
Zimbabwean themselves,
Yes.
before their liberation, were there. For those that are coming from Angola on a mission en route to South Africa, they can't be seen to be mixing with the Lusaka populace.
Okay.
In the event there's communication between these guys and the South African regime, that unit is exposed. Majority are trained officers who are now in civilian clothes. That's why we had a lot of guns in our houses.
Sure.
Because it's all soldiers. Emampele, I know you guys are thirsty, but information I have is that this water might be poisoned. And you know it's bullshit because metsi are running.
They're running fast.
You don't like I poison metsi ngamata.
King David Studio Podcast.
This is part 2 of an important series that I've started. It has to do with apartheid stories because I don't think we've done enough to uncover. And some may say it's not a necessary exercise. And some will say, well, we don't know and we need to find out. Really, because this is not an old history. It's as recent as the people who were actively part of that history are in their 60s, 70s, some of them. They're still that young. And some of us were there, you know. I grew up, most of the life I lived was during apartheid. So these are not old stories. And I felt it's important for us to capture them while the time is right. And I have with Colson Beea, who was an MK activist. And now this is part 2. Part 1 was 4 hours. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Gee, I didn't even notice the first time.
It was. Yeah. Part 1 was 4 hours. So now this is part 2. We're starting at a point when he had just gone to Lusaka.
Lusaka, yes.
Just arrived.
Yes.
Lusaka, having spent a few months in Botswana. You're in exile. Uskipile border.
Absolutely.
Yes. As they used to be. Why do they use the phrase uskipa?
Why did they use the phrase?
Uskipa. Why do you? Because we used to say that. And we probably still say that.
I don't know. It's suppose it has something to do or everything to do with the fence itself.
Yes.
Why maybe it's skipping the fence, or jump a fence.
It's a literal.
Yes.
Skippy.
That's because there must be a fence.
Something to jump into.
Fence or yeah, I suppose that's. I never even applied my mind as to why
it became such a common phrase.
Baskipile, we know what that means,
and we leave it there. You don't have to explain it any further.
Yeah.
Wow. So now you are in Lusaka.
Yeah, maybe. In Lusaka. Lusaka is the head office of the ANC at the time. Lusaka is the capital of Zambia.
Who's there from ANC as the head office?
The then president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo, members of the National Executive Committee at the time. I'll name a few that come to mind that I remember. Joe Modise, the late Chris Hani, Thabo Mbeki, Paulo Jordan, Ronnie Castles, May Shope, the husband Mark Shope, Joe Slovo.
These are people we used to sing about.
Yes. Bontate Dentrome. I'll get to Josiah Jele, Joan Tlantla, Badile Gertrude Shope. I'll remember as we go along because it's quite a few years back.
What kind of life did they have? Let's talk about the executive, for example.
Yeah.
Because, you think of an executive, you think of this high-flying hotshot. And I'm curious to know,
Okay. The difference between life in Botswana and life in Zambia is the following. Botswana, we were there, and 90% of the time we were in safe houses, in underground, and our movement was limited.
Okay.
Because Botswana, like Botswana, like Zimbabwe, would not allow us to carry arms in their country. They would give us what they called safe passage.
Okay.
They would recognize our presence and existence as a transit country.
Okay.
They would not allow us to have military bases, and therefore we were prohibited from carrying arms. Zambia was different. Yes, we didn't have military bases in Zambia, but the laws in Zambia, in as far as us having arms, was more relaxed than in Botswana.
Gotcha.
Of course, we were not allowed to openly carry weapons like AK-47 in public. But
in Lusaka.
In Lusaka.
Yeah.
But they would allow us to have weapons at our residences, as long as we don't carry them in public.
Don't walk around.
Don't walk around with that. So they knew we were armed, as long as we don't display those. So that's the difference, and I thought, let me make that.
It's an important one.
It's an important one. It's important because if you were, and as we said earlier, if you were arrested in Botswana with any type of weapon, irrespective of the size, the punishment was severe.
Oh.
And we knew that. So whatever arms we would have in Botswana, we would have to have your own DLB, which is your dead letter box. You'll carry it on your body, just for your own, but make sure that you are not found or caught in a roadblock and so forth and so forth. We didn't have that challenge in Zambia. Now, to your question, how did the executive leave? It's a huge contrast to the current leadership of the ruling party.
Understandably, they were not in government then. Then they were fighting for freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let me qualify the contrast in that we had an Oliver Tambo, we had a Chris Hani, we had a Thabo Mbeki, we had a Joe Slovo, and all these leaders who were important. But the fact that they were in the NEC of the ANC at the time, to them was not a matter of status. They behaved and they were treated, and they treated themselves as I would, who was not a member of the NEC, as an ordinary member of the organization. The respect that they gave an ordinary member was extraordinary. They allowed us to differ with them fundamentally on any matter, including the ANC, the president of the ANC, who said to us, I'm a member of the ANC. The fact that I'm president does not make it me a better member of the ANC than you are. if you comrades feel that whatever I say in our debates that you don't agree with, you have a right to raise your hand and differ.
And tell me.
And tell me without fear
Mm.
of being ostracized or so forth. So we grew up in that culture.
Mm.
And of course we would exercise our right and differ with the leadership, but within the parameter of respect. I would always remember that Chris is my senior, so is Joe Modise. And how I differed with them must always have that element of respect.
It wasn't fear.
No.
It was
No. And they appreciated that because one, it allowed them to understand Rona's rank and file, where we are and our thinking. So it gave them the opportunity to also reflect on what they were doing or saying, but it gave them the opportunity to then also bring us in line and broaden our scope and horizon in understanding the fundamentals of the ANC politics, its policies, in relation to the total struggle, that of liberating our people at home.
You know, we at some point in the first part of this, we spoke about the education, the political education.
Yes.
That was always around young people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some correct, some not. Some with sinister intentions, but there was always some political education.
Yes.
So now you're in Lusaka. Surely the university is much closer.
Mm-hmm.
This political education is right here.
Absolutely.
These are the guys.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
were they sessions of some kind, educational sessions?
There were always and constant sessions. And because the proximity to leadership was so close and so free, as youngsters, we had access to all the leadership. And at times, if you are lucky, including the president, where you would pull them aside and they would stop what they are doing to engage on a subject matter that is closer to you. And we would really 3-4 and say, no, but here's Chris. Let's ask Commissar. Commissar, we know you are busy, but on this point, he would leave what he's doing and attend to us and listen. And a 10 minutes, 20 minutes kind of our disturbing him would then drag into an hour or 2 hours.
I imagine to them it was equally as important.
It was critical. They understood their role as leadership being that of grooming us to become better people. Politics were such a central how can I put it? It was, it's what made the center to hold. It permeated down to the army itself.
You're saying the education.
The political education.
Yes.
Yeah. It went right down to the camps.
Yes.
That what was central and critical was political education. So that as a soldier that comes out of Angola, MK trained, you need to understand why are you carrying an AK-47. You need to be able to explain every bullet that leaves your gun in case you are at home, to say to our people, we are not terrorists. We are not bandits. Our military fight is premised on politics.
But and I like that we got here. What was it premised on?
The what?
The politics. What exactly were you, in terms of the narrative amongst those that were in camp, that escaped the border and so forth? What were you fighting for? What was the thinking? What was the political education exactly at its core? I imagine it's a lot of subjects, but at its core, what was it? I say this because there's land issues that we're still grappling with even today. I say this because there's nationalization of all sorts of resources that is still a hot political issue even today, and the emancipation of people and just people's lives getting better. What at the heart of it was the education of politics within the ANC camps in exile.
What is it that we were fighting for,
basically,
at a political level?
Basically,
you might have heard many a times people talking about the National Democratic Revolution. Others called it the National Democratic Struggle, which was premised on the Freedom Charter, which became our Bible and our document out of which our strategy and tactics were derived. Which would then address the issues of land, of education, and all of that in the 10 clauses that are there. Now, the ANC from inception became the leader of this revolution, the National Democratic Revolution, which was the first phase of our revolution.
Congress of the People.
Yes, out of the Congress of the People came the Freedom Charter, which then, after adoption, was then said the ANC should lead this on behalf of because
the smaller formations.
The Congress of the People, there were 4 parties there. The ANC then took the lead on behalf of the other 3 to champion this revolution. But that's the first phase where the ANC was fighting for to take over the political aspect from the hands of the apartheid system into this. But then there would have been the second phase. That's why we had what we called a two-stage theory. The first stage would then be NDR, which would be led by the ANC. And the second stage would have then been the core of the revolution, would have been the class struggle.
Did we tick any of those 2 boxes?
No.
I'm talking about,
no.
I'm deliberately fast forwarding to today when you and I are having this conversation.
No, we didn't.
No.
Any
of, any one of these 2, we kind of,
we look, phase 1. We and I'm also fast forwarding to
deliberately. We'll go back
to the Convention for a Democratic South Africa because that laid the basis of
kind of what we had.
Yes.
What follows after 30 years.
What follows after 30 years, etc., etc. Now, during CODESA, all of these issues on the Freedom Charter were part of the negotiations. In negotiations, as you know, there's horse trading. You take this, I give you this, and all of that. And I think we, as the ANC deviated
from some of the Bible, the matters on the Bible.
Yes, which then affected the core of the first phase, which is the National Democratic Revolution.
Got you, yes.
We could not follow through on what the Freedom Charter had said, and this is what we had been preaching all along before coming to everybody,
including soldiers and
everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah? This is what we were fighting for. Hence the support from us in exile and the masses outside. Inside the country, because they looked at this and said, "This is what we want."
To those that were in prison,
everybody else
was reading the same Bible.
Yes. Now, I must have touched the last time on a concept that to this day I don't understand. Perhaps academics and intellectuals like you may help us. During negotiations or just before negotiations, you have the talks that were held in, I think, in Stellenbosch,
Mhm.
Groote
Yeah, there were quite a number of these talks. Yeah, but that one is an important one.
The Groote Minute came out of that. And others called it talks about
talks. About talks. Yes, you made reference to
that. Yeah. It then set the agenda.
Mm.
Now, part of the challenge there, because there were a number of other parties that were in there, the then ruling Afrikaner regime and the ANC agreed on what they called sufficient consensus.
I remember that. Yeah, you made reference to it.
Yes.
We don't have to completely agree, but we can agree to say this is enough.
This is enough.
Yeah, this is good enough to move to the next step.
Now, with sufficient consensus, it meant if the two parties agreed on a particular thing, the other parties who have a stake in the negotiations
must follow or fall off. Fall in line or fall off.
Now, I'm raising this because one of the political parties that were originally part of CODESA is the Pan-Africanist Congress that complained about this concept of sufficient consensus. They saw it as coming to rubber stamp.
You're just saying you too.
Yes.
You're not even allowing me to say me too.
No.
You too.
So they then jumped ship and left the negotiations, primarily because the negotiations around land took a different turn. And
from the Bible?
From the Bible. And they said, this is enough. It can't be us. Look, I hold no brief for the PAC or any other party, but I'm just bringing it up as a way of illustrating the question that you had raised, that what went wrong? Did we achieve the first phase as we were supposed to? So my saying no is informed by this narrative, amongst others.
I imagine. Land couldn't have been the only thing.
It couldn't have been.
It's key. However, it's not the only thing in the Bible as well.
The ANC agreed on this thing called Government of National Unity for the 5 years.
I sometimes question why we had elections, but it's fine. No, because you think about it. It was I didn't vote for the deputy president that became deputy president.
There were two deputy presidents.
I know, I'm aware.
Yes.
I didn't. One of them I didn't vote for at all. And I'm almost certain he lost outright.
But he came in because of the compromise.
You see what I mean? That's why I say sometimes I wonder, democracy is democracy. Yes. Democracy requires all of us to come in this room and then vote.
Yes.
And then once we are done, we count and say, you won, I lost. But you're still with us.
It's part of the sufficient consensus thing. Well, you will lose, but you'll still win.
Yeah, you will lose, but you'll still win.
Now, that is one of the challenges where nobody perhaps voted for the other deputy president, but the deputy was there.
He got votes, but not enough
to become
deputy president.
Yeah. Part of what had been agreed upon. Remember, we had 4 provinces at the time, and the other parties were rooting for a federal state.
Okay.
The NC said no.
Where individual states would govern themselves. Yes, it's like a separate development of sorts.
The NC said no. It's a unitary state. But as a compromise, the agreement then was okay. Let's extend or expand the provinces from 4 to 9.
Why is that a compromise?
It's a compromise because had the ANC, put its foot down and said no unitary state and nothing else, perhaps the negotiations would have collapsed.
Okay. I guess also what I'm trying to understand is, what do you lose if you don't get what you want in this case, a federal state? What were the advantages and disadvantages of one side versus the other?
My understanding was that with the breaking of the 4-9, the parties such as the IFP moved from an assumption that because KZN is predominantly a Zulu-speaking province, the IFP would win an outright 2/3 majority to govern that province in perpetuity.
Got you.
So did perhaps the DA with where they
At the
are
time,
today.
Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
It's actually National
Party
yes.
and so forth and so forth. It gave people a sense of
I might get something.
Ownership, belonging, control,
Okay.
and so forth.
It's too small.
It's
if
too
it's
small.
9, there's a
There's a chance I may and then govern myself, etc., etc.
Okay.
And I'm saying this is my understanding of how we arrived at that. But part of the agreement was that whoever wins the elections after the first 5 years of a government of national unity is not necessarily bound by the decisions taken.
Got you.
You have the right to decide why. If you want to go back to the 4 provinces,
do what you want.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
Why are we stuck with the 9 provinces, and why do we have the 3 tiers in government is still puzzling. And it's puzzling because, and talking about CODESA, we will hop from one to the other.
That's fine.
It's puzzling because I always question this thing. I may have raised it the other time. You have a province, Gauteng. You have MECs. You have an MEC of police in Gauteng. You have a provincial commissioner of police who the provincial commissioner of police does not necessarily report to the MEC of police.
Reports to head office, to the national government. Yeah.
So the MEC of police can't issue instruction for the police to man roadblocks or investigate this or that. So what then is their role in as far as policing, the practical policing is concerned?
It's been questioned extensively, maybe not as extensively as it should, whether we need the middle tier. That is something that's always a conversation that's been around for a while.
If I may ask you or any other person, and maybe because I'm naive, but what is the role of the premier in the 9 provinces? Well,
let me give you my understanding, because I had to try to understand it myself the same way. And it doesn't mean my understanding is necessarily correct. It's municipalities are branches of McDonald's.
Okay.
And there's a provincial, a regional office. Do you know in businesses, every regional manager is coming.
Yes.
Yes, and we clean the store.
Okay.
So municipalities are branches within the bigger region.
Okay.
And the premier becomes the regional manager.
Right.
It's a similar application in some form in the States as well, where there are governors and you have mayors.
Yeah, it's that kind of.
There's a president, there are governors, and there's mayors. If my understanding of it is correct, it's similar application where there's an overseer. The question is, do they do that? That's probably the question. Do they oversee what you call it? The mayor of Johannesburg answerable
to the premier.
You see what I mean? I don't know that because that requires someone that knows there's probably better.
Yeah.
But that's just me trying to that's just me trying to rationalize what I'm seeing.
I would devolve a lot of all these powers to municipalities.
Because they rest there.
Yeah. That's where form. I think the powers, both political, fiscal, and administrative, should be. Why? Because that's where the deliverables have to happen. That service delivery issues are there.
We don't get water from a premier. We get it from the mayor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Potholes, all of these things are here. Bread and butter issues are here. Now, you have central government and treasury taking a chunk of the budget and give it to the middle tier government to do what becomes an issue in me. And as you say, I'm not a subject matter specialist. Perhaps there is merit, but I'm still have to find what.
Yes, you need to be.
Yes,
really.
Here's
another small way of looking at it. When they were divided into 9, they needed their own small leaders, though that 9, that division. The same way as Bantustans and so forth and so forth. They needed Tonakolo.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we can't divide this into 9 and now not have a Tonakolo.
You'd have a Tonakolo.
You need to have the head office.
Yes, with political power and all of
Absolutely. Yeah? And then break it down into smaller pieces where the mayor of Midvaal will do his thing and the mayor of Tshwane will do their thing with political power and so forth and so forth. Yeah. And that's why I always apply business to it because it's a similar type of application. You have a CEO using big corporates like your accounting firms, your PwC.
Group CEO, and then you've got smaller CEOs.
Absolutely, and you find Group CEO is not even South Africa only. He's SADC, and his office happens to be in South Africa. But he answers even
Kenya.
You know what I mean?
Nigeria,
absolutely, all these they answer to him.
Yeah,
and he has the smaller CEO who's based in South Africa.
In South Africa, yes. And in Kenya, and in
because there has to be.
I suppose that's a subject you will have to carry with those who understand that matter better. Yes. And one would then have the privilege of listening in to those who would then respond to these.
Absolutely.
At some point, hopefully you'll find somebody who can then say, no, let me help these guys in understanding why we
what happened here. What was the reason?
The reason, the rationale, and so forth. Yeah. But I also foresee that if you were to come and say, no, but let's get rid of the provinces, there will be a huge fight back.
Naturally. Yeah. You're disturbing the political status quo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're disturbing how things are done.
To others, it's job creation. It's
yes, it could be seen that way.
If they say I'm no longer a premier, go Jack.
but also, let's go back also to the movement that you know fairly well, the ANC.
Yeah,
it has let's talk about it not as a government but as a political party.
Yes,
or political movement for that matter. They have the president of the ANC.
Yes.
Break it down beyond that. Come down step by step and say, then what happens? Top 6.
Yeah, they have a top 7 now.
Yes. Apply the same logic as a government.
And take it down.
Yes.
Then they would have a provincial chairperson.
Who are generally given the position of premier.
Yes.
If they win the region.
Yes.
So the application is identical.
Then you have the regional chairperson and then up to the branch.
Exactly. And you find that.
So that's the ANC in its.
It's a similar application. Similar, almost to the T. And you find councillors.
And then you find councillors, etc., etc.
Literally all the way down.
I may understand that, but in my head, I'm saying, to what extent does it enhance a better life and better living for our own people.
It's debatable. Yes.
That's where I come from, that premise. If it was adding, its impetus was bringing good and better life and all of that, I would sit back and say maybe it's
we see what they do.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
But there is that disjuncture
it's a continuing debate. As recent as a few weeks ago, I read an article in the papers about that very subject.
Yeah.
And interesting, and it's my fault. I should have done it. I had a premier here, Panyaza, and I should have spoken on the subject as well.
I wish you had.
We had limited time. We had limited time.
I see.
But think about it. Remove the premier of the Western Cape, for example.
What then happens?
You see
they lose their power, they lose their control, so it will be a huge fight.
Naturally, it's
and it's understandable.
Yeah.
But if we take away that politics and political control and all of that, and take the interest of the country in totality and its people, if we were in unison, it shouldn't matter, whether power is taken away from you, as long as the country is governed the way it should be governed, which then is a huge issue.
Yeah, that's why I say it's such a debatable matter. Remove premiers and that office, the middle tier, and now bring power all the way from the president's office, all the way to mayors.
Yeah,
it's also a chaotic environment where you're dealing now with a guy who used to live down the road. Now he lives in a better suburb and is a mayor of this area. As a president or a premier, not even a premier, rather, as a minister in that department, you have to deal with 1,000 of them.
Yeah. When we grew up, we had Transvaal, which is Gauteng, which had no premier.
Yes.
It had an administrator.
Yeah.
We called it TPA, Transvaal Provincial Administration, whose function was administrative,
not political. Yeah. Deliver.
And that's it. So I'm not too sure if people can sit and go back and say, let's remove the politics from the middle strata and convert them into administrative.
Yeah.
Whether that would work or not.
But you cannot take away politics from positions, if you think about it.
Why not?
The minute you and I, we are two educated young men coming out of university, we are gunning for position of the head administrator of Gauteng. It's all academic. It's all has to do with competence. And this is the minute there's contestation, there's politics. Because
I understand that. In that context, yes.
Yes.
But I'm saying once whoever wins that contest becomes an administrator of that province.
You're the CEO.
You're the CEO
of Gauteng.
That's it. You are not a head of a political party per se that oversees a province.
Let me tell you where it gets complicated. I, as the president, I have power to appoint the CEO of Gauteng.
Yeah.
I don't want just anyone.
Yes, you want loyalty, allegiance, and all of that. Yeah,
and that comes with politics, because I will have to look for the very people I went to Lusaka with, the people I went to Russia with, the people
issues of trust and that argument and everything else that goes with it. Yeah.
So there's a big chance I'll appoint a cadre.
Yeah.
It's almost 99% possibility.
So we are going back to cadre deployment.
That's it. Absolutely. Okay. And it's an unavoidable practice.
It is the world over.
Yes.
I mean, all governments that I know in the world employs cadre deployment. They may call it something else.
That's why I find it puzzling that the DA
it's being silly.
So deep.
It's being very silly. I mean, imagine the DA coming into power and they leave all the stuff in President Cyril Ramaphosa's office intact. It's not going to happen.
Never.
They are going
but we change no one.
It's not going to happen. It's a myth, and they
Yes.
know that. They have already aligned their own people
But what they question is appointing
on merit.
aha. That they question merit, and they also question cadres like Makomore. There's nothing here. He's just a howling politician.
Yeah.
And nothing else to offer to.
I think they've politicized the term cadre and took it out of context.
That's it.
Because cadre means it's like comrade. Comrade is not ANC.
No.
Comrade is a universal
phrase.
Yeah. You could be a cadre anywhere in the world. In Britain, they may call it something else, but you can use the term cadre. It doesn't mean this is ANC. But they've politicized the terminology cadre to say, I batata be
laba
be ANC. Abangafundanga azotshontsha and
that's
so
it.
forth.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that narrative, the ANC has not been able to fully deal with it in a manner that it should, to say to the people, actually, this
is what happens. And I think there's nothing wrong, because I realize it's wrong.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's wrong. But I think there's nothing fundamentally wrong in appointing cadres.
No.
I think there's nothing fundamentally wrong in appointing people you trust and you want to work with. That happens in life.
Absolutely.
It happens in small businesses. It happens in large businesses.
Absolutely.
It happens in family businesses.
Absolutely.
That's why legacies carry on. What you need to take also is the ability for this person to keep this thing going well. That's an important part of the story.
That's core.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why this helps me to go back to where we were. Legacy issues, and also I've always looked at ANC from a distance as a political party that was completely incapable of knowing who was the next leader. Knowing it long before it needs to happen.
Are you saying it was capable or incapable?
Incapable.
Okay.
And that's my perspective.
Historically.
Well, yes, but the history that we continue to live in.
Okay.
Yes. We continue to live within that very history.
Okay.
And I need you to help me understand it during the days of exile. When you are just fighting in inverted commas, because you were in a foreign country, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the battleground. What conversations were you having about succession planning, about who's next? Because ANC has a president that stayed for over 30 years.
Yes. Let me try and respond to that. I will attempt. My understanding is different from yours in terms of succession plan.
My perspective is just, I'm a fan in the stands. I'm watching the team lose, and I'm blaming them.
Yes. I would argue that the ANC had a succession plan in the following manner. I had said to you that we had access to the leadership, and we were milking knowledge from them from time to time. And they let us do that because that was their way of identifying. The ANC had a way of, with these political discussions going on amongst us from the senior leadership to us, it was their way of identifying, nurturing, and grooming the next layer of leadership from them.
That is a succession planning activity.
From their perspective. But we equally knew, without that being pronounced, that if instead Oliver Tambo were to pass on in exile, who were the likely candidates? We had not one. We had
Okay.
3, 4 that were the likely successors.
Okay.
Because also of the responsibilities that were given to them by the president himself.
Mhm.
We could see that, okay,
He's grooming someone.
he's grooming this
Okay.
person to become this without necessarily pronouncing on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we had a way of understanding that as a succession plan. And they did that so that the contestation is not
What we get to see now.
yes,
Yes.
that we don't have a Polokwane in exile.
And Nazareth
And
and
Nazareth,
you name it.
yeah.
They carry on.
Contestations would always be there. The
Mm.
elections were always contested. Contrary
Were they
to
fierce?
very, very fierce.
Okay.
Contrary to a belief that Oliver Tambo was never contested in the 30 years, it is not true.
Okay.
Every time we went to elections of the NEC in exile, it was not a given, even from him, and natural that he would be there.
Mm.
Come election time, there is nobody at the podium. But it means for that period until we elect, we don't have a leadership.
Yes, they all come down.
They all come
They
down.
are all ordinary
Yes.
members. Yes.
Very rare. And it was not because he was ruthless and a dictator and so forth. Very rare was there someone who would raise his or her hand to say, I also stand for.
He went uncontested.
Yeah. But it was not because of his dictatorial manner. It is because we all looked at him and said, why remove
demand?
Yeah, when he's doing what we actually feel comfortable with.
Wasn't there a term of office?
The ANC does not have.
Okay. Does it still stay the same even now?
It stays the same, and I'm quickly going to dash to Polokwane.
I am aware. Carry on.
On that.
Because Polokwane brought with it a Mbeki.
A narrative that was not correct.
That Mbeki that was looking for third term.
Yeah.
It gave that impression.
Third term, yeah.
Help us understand it.
You see, people say third term.
That's what it was called.
But third term for what?
So that means, okay, help it. Because I can conclude it, but help it.
The Polokwane, where the elections and the contestation was for the president of the ANC as a party.
Got you.
Mbeki was president of the ANC and president of the country.
Got you. Pause. One step back.
Okay.
Because the ANC doesn't have a term.
Yes.
Reiterate.
Yes.
You can be a president for life.
You can stand for as many times as you wish,
Granted.
as you want.
So are you saying that we confused the two?
But that's the issue, that those who pushed the narrative that said Mbeki wants to run for a third term and this is wrong.
A government third term. He wasn't contesting. He wasn't running.
That's not contestable.
It wasn't national elections.
No, it was not government elections.
It was ANC.
It was ANC elections.
Yeah.
And the constitution does not allow for a third term.
I must tell you, the narrative won, eh?
It won. Unfortunately. Because this question that we always asked, but third term, ya ing. They said, ufuna third term, ufuna ruler. And when you say, but where in the constitution of the ANC does it say, because he had been president for two terms, he can't stand?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Anyway, so he had a right like any other member of the ANC.
And he did. He contested.
He contested. And he lost.
Yeah. He lost. I remember that. It's a horrible moment.
But you see, the narrative was pushed in a manner that casted, an aspersion.
I can tell you why And this is just another moment where a fan in the stands is looking at the game
Yeah.
and saying, Twanela shouldn't have been there. I can tell you how it was easy to push the narrative, and the narrative gets believable because an ANC president becomes the country's president.
Yes.
That's automatic. It's expected. So it was easy to push the Ufuni third term logic.
Yes.
Because
even if they knew the constitution would not allow it.
Exactly. Because he was looking to get third term within the ANC.
Yeah.
So the impression was
it would automatically make him third term
president. You see how easy was it
to
sell it?
I know.
Yes.
I know.
And we know that the Southern Constitution would not have allowed it.
And they were silly.
Well, the silliness worked.
Those who pushed that, and they knew that they were silly.
It worked.
And they played on the emotions of the electorate, and I don't want to say ignorance, but for lack of a better word, I would say that the base of the membership were ignorant of
the details.
Those nuances
Yeah.
of third term for president of the country is not practical. It can't happen.
Let's do this exercise for a few seconds. He becomes president
of the
ANC.
Yeah.
Third term.
Yes. And someone else becomes president of the country. Yes.
ANC politics that we've learned over the years do not seem to be easily, and I'm saying something that may be so wrong. They don't look like they're they're friendly to that system, where you are president of the ANC, but you're not president of the country at all. Here's an example. Autia Kasiao.
Yeah.
For a moment, he was deputy president of the ANC, but not deputy president of the country.
Yes.
It made the news every day.
Yes.
The small matter. You see how
why he's been marginalized and this and that and that and that.
You see, and we're talking about
so they're forcing your hand indirectly.
Absolutely.
The narrative forces your hand.
Because you could have left Dada David Mabuza to continue to be deputy president of the country until the end of the term.
Prerogative via the head of state to choose deputy president.
But we know ANC politics is not easy to just choose anyone.
But let me come back to Polokwane on another term that was coined.
Okay.
Around President Beki Obatla third term. There was this thing, if he became president of the ANC and someone became president of the country, what term did they use? Waiki Levala. Oh, two centers of power.
Aha. Yes, it is separation of power.
Yeah.
Two centers of power.
They said, no, it is two centers of power, and it may render the president of the country
with little
weak
power.
And because the mandate of government comes from the ruling party. Yes. So Mbeki would then still dictate.
Will still be president of the
president of the de facto. Okay? Now, they agreed for the president of the ANC must become president of the country.
It's always been like
and
that.
It must filter down
to
provinces, premiers and so forth.
And even mayor. It goes to that level.
But look at what happened after Polokwane, immediately after Polokwane.
Yeah. The president was kicked out.
President is out,
yes.
Right? President Zuma is now president of the ANC and therefore the country.
Actually not.
No, the following year.
The following year, not immediately.
Not immediately.
Because there was a moment
moment.
At the Khalema.
Yeah.
Yes.
After recalling.
That
which from a legal point of view, I still have issues, but I'm not a legal expert. Yeah?
You can easily say the President Beki resigned.
Well, let's put it that way for ease of the discussion.
Yeah.
Now, you then had the current deputy president then as chairperson of the Gauteng province of the ANC.
Who was it at the time?
Paul Mashatile.
Okay.
Paul is the chairperson. Naturally, if you take the resolution of Polokwane to kill two centers of power, it means Paul must then become the premier,
Premier of Gauteng.
who is elected by the president,
Got you.
and the president is Jacob Zuma at the time.
Mm.
If they were to follow that narrative or that argument, which actually had brought him into power,
Paul would have been
the
premier a long, long time ago.
he then elects Nomvula.
I remember that.
Who-
I remember then Nomvula won the provincial
where
elections.
is the consistency from that? It therefore shows that narrative was actually manufactured for Polokwane. And I'm sorry to use the term manufactured because it sounds a bit taking people and so
it
forth.
Was contrived. However, you can say that it was created because it wasn't followed through.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it wasn't followed through.
And when people said, but how is it that when it comes to this, it doesn't matter? Now the two centers, Paul remains chairperson, but he's not
premier.
Premier. How does it work here?
I must admit, though, I remember that time well. It was quite a volatile arrangement in Gauteng because of that.
Yes,
it was a very wobbly setup.
Polokwane will go down the history of the ANC as an extremely unfortunate event that happened.
Well, but one can say that those who argue the opposite.
They will always find those. I don't know what the argument would be.
We got a president, and a president had run the country well for 8 years.
9 years. It's not the best for the ANC as a party.
Okay.
Not the country per se, but the ANC as a party, the cracks became bigger, the splits became bigger. You then began to see the offshoots, that is splinter organization, starting with COPE. And it was a rippling effect of the 300 parties that we have today.
It hasn't stopped even now.
300 parties that we have, a large portion of them come from the ANC.
Yes. Let's go back now to the young man you are in Lusaka.
Uh-huh.
How long are you there for? And you're training?
Not... You mean militarily?
Yes.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm in transit.
Oh, to where?
To Angola.
For how long were you in Lusaka for?
That's where, I think less than a year.
Okay.
Now, I think we touched on life in Zambia, in Lusaka.
Yes, somewhat.
Yeah.
Let me touch on it and with short questions that are easy to answer. Where you stay?
Zambia had townships.
Okay.
Lots of them. Libala, Lilanda, Kabwata, Mundawanga. These are...
Are you guys all over the place?
We are all scattered in these townships.
And in what? In houses?
Yeah, in houses.
Homes?
It's forums. No. The ANC they were allocated a forumed house, and then they will give it to you, and that. In some bigger houses, okay,
as a unit. Yeah,
as a unit.
Yeah.
Some we used as safe houses and transit properties for those that are coming from Angola on a mission en route to South Africa. Okay. They can't be seen to be mixing with the Lusaka populace.
Okay.
In the event there's communication between these guys and the South African regime, that unit is exposed.
Then they have to kill that machine.
Or already these guys' lives are in jeopardy because Maburu Tlabe met.
Yeah. So
for security reasons and to protect them, we had a lot of safe houses.
What was the thinking, from your knowledge, the Zambian government for allowing all of this to happen in their country?
I must credit the leadership of the Zambian government at the time, under the tutelage of Dr. Kaunda. They had a political system. Their party was called UNIP. Can't remember the full. And they had a democracy which which is still a bit strange to me. They called it one-party participatory democracy.
Okay, sounds interesting.
I don't know what that means. And he was there the longest. But
Yes. I think Zimbabwe has the same system. They just don't say it openly.
yeah, what?
Even China has the same system. They just don't say it openly.
One-party participatory democracy.
Yeah.
That's how UNIP was used to
Mhm.
to call it out. But Kaunda, as a person, as a statesman, I think played a critical role in as far as supporting our struggle is concerned. We were not the only liberation movement that was housed in Zambia.
From other countries?
The
Or
Zimbabwean themselves,
Yes.
before their liberation, were there. I think SWAPO was also there, and a number of others who were there.
Jeez.
Remember, they had then what they call the SADC, SADC
Yes.
of the
Yes,
time.
of the time, yes.
Now, leadership here, Dr. Kaunda, plus the founding father, I think, were Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, and other stalwarts in the SADC region, I think played a very central and pivotal role in taking a decision that they will defy the South African regime and risk their countries from international sanctions, from attacks, bombardment of our houses where some of their people would be killed in the process, because we live with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we groove with them.
Of course, because they're your neighbors.
They are our neighbors.
Yes.
Life in Zambia became a normal country township life. So we would commute from where we live by bus or taxi.
You were welcomed like other citizens.
We gelled.
Yeah.
We began to understood their language and their culture and assimilate and had their own food, etc., etc. Everybody in the ANC had a monthly stipend.
Okay. Funded by?
I think our funding came from, and there were different fundings that came from largely the Eastern Bloc countries, the Nordic and the Scandinavian countries.
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah. And you find that it's because they were against other people.
The West.
Yeah, of course.
It was the Cold War.
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Yeah. I support you because we agree on who we hate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The enemy of your enemy
Absolutely.
is my friend.
It's Ukraine. It's
yes.
Israel. The
Yes.
story has never changed. Iran.
There's never any,
story hasn't
and I
changed.
doubt if it will change anytime soon.
No, it won't. They don't fight directly. They fight through the small guys.
We become the proxies of their wars and fights and so forth. And so forth. Now, having the ANC headquartered in Lusaka brought enormous challenges to the ANC itself and to the Zambian government. Because you can imagine, this proxy wars by the multinationals would descend on Zambia.
On the livelihood
Yes.
of the people of Zambia.
So you'd have all these security services of these Western countries based in Zambia, because that's where the headquarters of the ANC is.
Sure.
You had the CIA there, you had Mossad, the French intelligence, the German intelligence, the British intelligence.
But why was the Zambian government allowing them to park here?
They have embassies.
Yeah, because you can't then remove the embassies.
And that's how they come into the country disguised as embassy employees.
And they're CIA.
And they're CIA, and they're Mossad, and they are, GD from the German, the Western German at the time. And all would have an interest in monitoring the activities of the ANC. Not so much to kill us, but to see where the trend is going, collect intelligence on the ANC, feed it to the
Their
South
government?
African,
Oh,
their government
their
and the South
government?
African
Okay,
government
okay.
to keep it in perpetual power.
Because they benefit from
They
it.
benefit.
Mm.
So it's those. Of course, we suffered some casualties, which we believe were as a result of the presence of these multinational spies. Life has to go on. We are, of course, in exile. Some in Lusaka are trained officers who had come back from Angola. Some are in transit to Angola. And when I say life has to go on, if you have a partner and you feel it's the right time for you to get married, life goes on. You go to the park and sign and have these elderly NEC members stand as parents and borangwane.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
So the people who were married by OR as the uncle.
As the uncle or Joe Mudise or whoever.
Interesting.
So that, we go through the rituals and all of that. But it also means that the other part of life of partying has to go on. You can't be cooked in a house forever.
Planning to overthrow apartheid government.
No.
And you can't do that every day.
No. And because you commute from where you live, from this township, this house, to work. Go Lusaka, go head office. It's like going to Shell House.
What is work in that context?
There's a lot of administrative work for those who were full-time employed by the ANC to help with a lot of issues, administrative
but
and
those
otherwise.
that are not, that are here on this big, giant mission of, I was a kid from Soshanguve and I want to overthrow the South African government. And I find myself in exile in Lusaka.
Others are waiting, are in transit, either waiting to go home or to go to Europe for extra
military training.
Yeah.
Some are in the military, in the MK.
Majority are trained officers who are now in civilian clothes. That's why we had a lot of guns in our houses.
Sure.
Because it's all soldiers.
Essentially.
It's
you skip the border to
Zambia
fight.
is militarized by us, although we are not, carrying these weapons. But the mere presence of us there, we are all trained soldiers. Should something happen, we all bear arms and we know how to fight back.
What?
So I was saying that we all got a stipend of 14 kwacha per month.
Yes.
All of us, irrespective of your position, whether you are NEC or... And with 14 kwacha, a loaf of bread was 10 kwacha.
14 kwacha buys nothing.
But they gave us 14 kwacha. And we were content.
You lived.
We were content because over and above that, they would give us the basics.
Okay.
Meal, rice. I think rice came from China and all of that. Rice, cooking oil, sugar, tea, coffee.
You had food.
We had food on a monthly basis.
Yeah, so 14 kwacha
was pocket money.
Pocket money on the side.
Yeah, a bottle of beer, Mosi, is 10 kwacha. So if you have 14, you choose, what do I buy bread today or do I buy Mosi?
I'll have bread this month and I'll have beer next month.
But for us to survive, because they give you, now for instance, I live alone in this 4-roomed house. They give me milli and all of this every month. It becomes too much.
Okay, because you end up with more food than you need because
some I would donate to my neighbors.
Okay,
the rest, if I need extra cash, I would sell.
Naturally, because you need one more beer.
And I didn't drink at the time. I'm just
Yes.
But the socialization came with its own challenges. And I'm saying we lost a lot of good cadres there because, it's a Friday, you go to a club in Lusaka. Upandile nyana, you can afford the majita, you can afford to have a crate of beer from your own donations. Because of the presence of all these multinational intelligence agencies, they would then study our behavior. Go ile gwa nna le an era where we lost a lot of our people from poisoning.
Sure.
And they used the locals
to infiltrate.
And women in particular.
Of course.
So how ka wa tlogetse beer and go to the dance floor? You come back, you're excited, you continue to drink, it may be the end. Yes. So what they would use to put there was extremely lethal.
Did leadership notice a pattern? And
when people started dying and the postmortem pointed to poison, we then said, oops, we are in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges that we faced in Zambia.
But did you know at the time that you were being constantly monitored? Were you aware?
Yes, we were. Yeah. We were. Remember, part of the ANC intelligence machinery is to counter those.
Yeah.
So there was a woman who we knew was American, but she was not attached to the embassy or anything. She posed as a businessman, a businesswoman, a philanthropist. Always had dollars. When you had dollars, you are a king against the Kwacha. And this woman, for some reason, she was pretty, to put it mildly. And she would date a few of our people, and she would target the senior leadership, particularly of the security and intelligence.
Jeez.
She was on a mission.
She's a proper intelligence agent.
She was.
Yeah.
And then the challenge would be if you go to our own people and say, kana motho are money pill. For you to get out of that was going to be difficult because you are being pampered. Dollars. She travels and brings you Gucci and these big labels that we knew from then.
So you get a good life.
I know Batuba Bamochai are crazy about these Louis Vuittons and so forth. They were regular. We didn't.
They were not a big deal. Well, they were easily available.
They were easily available. And some came Kadi bail from, Neribitsa Mpando.
No, yes,
I think it happens now.
It's a big box,
You go to news or something.
You go to these Chinese stores where they sell all sorts of different types of clothes, and you get clearer to brand new clothes.
Lero, now we had a similar. The couple would come,
bring a bale of clothes.
Lots of them. They go storaging. At certain days, then people would be allowed to go and pick and choose.
That's some way of giving you guys a normal life.
Absolutely. How knowledge choice you'd see Raibon. And so forth. We said rightly sharp.
It's amazing how you are being infiltrated.
It's a never-ending battle.
But that means you have to be conscious of your soldier status. At any given time. You're not here. You're not on holiday.
No. You had to be conscious of your own surroundings.
All the time.
And it had its own toll on people, especially when people started, dying because of that. It then says a change of lifestyle and look at yourself, watch your back all the time. Surveillance and so forth. A few of our people died because their houses were attacked. Some died from car explosions.
All the stories we've heard,
Yes.
most of the stories we've heard were neighboring country related. Your Lesotho stories, the few of Lesotho stories
Yes.
of voter Basson stories were attached to those moments. But almost all of them that we got to hear about were neighboring country stories.
Yes.
We didn't get to hear a Lusaka story. And that news was completely disconnected.
No, it was.
To us.
For some reason,
we didn't know where you guys were.
I don't know. Maybe it's
distance.
Distance.
We have no idea where you guys were.
When a bomb explodes in Gaborone, you can pick it up because of,
Yes, it's likely the news will make it.
Yeah.
In some form.
But in Zambia or Zimbabwe, and there were explosions in Zimbabwe.
I can imagine.
I hope to find people who survived
who were in
Zimbabwe, who survived the actual bombing of their houses.
Sure.
They're alive. They're there. I speak to them all the time. I just have to say, do you want to
have a chat?
Chat Linda Demashawil and tell your story on how you survived and the trauma and impact it had on you from then until now. Some lost their hearings, and so it's all of these stories that are untold in a proper manner to South Africans.
No, and you can't blame us.
No, we can't.
Yeah, and I use the word blame deliberately because we genuinely don't know. Like, no, there's no class in high school. Yeah,
on that.
The military struggle of the liberation movement in South Africa, of all sorts, from APLA to, MK.
You look, if it's documented, it's a book written by a white person.
There you go.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Who would tell you their narrative in relation to what happened in Kwitokwana Valley, which is opposite to what I know.
So your vantage point is different from theirs.
From theirs. Yeah. And I read this book, but where the hell do they get this information from? Because this is not what happened.
What were you doing, though, to try to keep safe? Because I think we should always remember that you were there on a mission.
Yes.
Not just, like as in, we are trying to get something done here.
There's constant threat.
You know what I mean? In trying to achieve this
on your life and livelihood and so forth and so forth.
How are you trying to keep safe?
There's something basic that we were all taught. As to whether we all applied that in our everyday life is something else. All of us did a course on what is called MCW.
Okay, what is that?
MCW stands for Military and Combat Work.
Okay.
These are the basics on how to survive, to stay alive, how to pick up the extraordinary things in your life, how to be cautious, how not to leave your drink unattended and come back and drink it, irrespective of who you are with in the house. I could be with us, the four of us trained together. One of us might not necessarily be us.
You don't know.
I don't know. So carry your drink wherever you're going. Or
I'm not drinking it.
It's all
I need a new one.
I need a new one. And it became, to some of us, it became a norm. Is that the correct term?
100%.
Yeah, it became a norm, a way of life. As to whether you then feel offended or maybe I don't trust you is your problem.
Sorry.
Why should I trust you?
I'm a soldier.
Trust and check becomes the motto all the time. So those were some of the basics. But we are human beings.
Relax.
At some point, and that's where at times you get this thing. I believe gore go na le Modimo. Contrary to a lot of other discussions and those who say, it's a myth and so forth. I believe go na le Modimo. And I'm saying this because I'm coming to a specific, I know I'm hopping, to a specific incident around car bombs in Lusaka. There is an incident that happened. I am in one of the safe houses in Zambia. And if you fast forward, I'm in this safe house because I had just come back from training in Russia. I'm waiting to get further instructions whether I'm going to be full-time deployed in Zambia at head office or I'm transiting back to Botswana as the frontline state as an operational person. Now, whilst I'm there, Swaziland happens. Swaziland is one of the frontline countries where that was notorious with infiltration. It was a playground also of the South African defense.
You could just walk in.
Eugene de Kock
de Kock
played there.
Okay. So it was their neighborhood.
Yeah.
They could walk in and out whenever they wanted.
Absolutely. Yeah. In and out. But it also created a perception amongst us that it could have been one of the worst infiltrated of the frontline states, that a lot of the cadres would have worked for the police. That perception was there. As to whether it is true or not is something else.
So that if they are pimpis, they are coming from there.
They are coming from there.
Yeah.
Now, something happened where a group of cadres were infiltrated into the country. And along the way, they found the regime waiting for them.
The apartheid regime.
Yes. Bonabo Eugene de Kock.
Which country are they in now?
In Swaziland.
Yeah, they're not yet.
No, but cross it up. But Habafetso crosser in their vehicle, right inside the country,
Yeah.
Now, what we know, as we were told, was that it didn't even take as much as VS Jeleva, and so forth. They were shot whilst in the car.
What?
So the regime was making a statement.
Yeah.
It just wiped them. Now, it creates a lot of questions as to how did the regime know that these people are coming in and so forth. And I'm saying it's not an easy matter to deal with, because it then brings in this sensitive matter of spies and spying within the ANC, and it's a topic that.
But I imagine it's one that you dealt with. All of you dealt with very strongly.
We had to. It's inevitable.
You were always worried.
Now, I'm at this safe house with some people who were brought there because they needed to provide certain answers in relation to that incident. Now, I happen to be in that safe house with them.
But you're in Zambia.
I'm in Zambia waiting for instructions as to what
do we do now?
What do I do with me? Do they, right? There is some senior person who would from time to time come in to conduct their investigations. Outside of me, I was not privy to and part of that unit that would interrogate these people. It's a separate unit of, I think, counterintelligence or something like that. The person who would come in and do this thing, and I knew each other. We belonged to the security establishment of the ANC. So we are connected like that. Although we don't discuss our different cases.
Of course.
But we are social like that. On this particular day, this comrade then says to me, don't you want to come with me to the city center, to Lusaka? Uphume kule underground, ngoba it can get to you. Awubone bathu and so forth and so forth. I don't know, for some reason, there was reluctance that
Grand,
but maybe not today, but I appreciate the offer. Maybe next time. That comrade never lived to see the next day.
Oh no! In Lusaka.
In Lusaka,
what happened?
His car exploded.
Sure.
He went in to see some friends, I think, in a restaurant. That's the story we were told. Parked somewhere. He comes back, starts the car.
Gone.
Into smaller pieces. Now I'm saying Mudimuteng because
you could have gone with
I
him.
could have gone with him.
Yeah, literally.
Gone like in, I would not be sitting here with you.
Sure.
So it's those threats and challenges that we always lived with wherever we are. Whether you are in London or in the UK or in the US, you are not safe.
You always suspected you were being watched. Or you always knew.
You always knew it's when do they strike, if they do at all.
Yes.
I mean, we lost Darcy September in France and a host
Imagine
of,
that far.
Albisek survived a car bomb in Zimbabwe. And
who else was it whose arms he became a minister? I forget. Whose arms were left not immobile.
Herigwala. Oh, Herigwala, I think, I don't know what disease that is. As to whether it was induced or it was natural.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who dealt with death or injuries.
On a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis.
Let's leave Lusaka. Where do you go next?
I go to Angola.
What kind of environment is that?
But before we even leave for Angola, this is during the heavy HIV/AIDS pandemic era.
Okay.
So when you travel to the next country, there was a request, take an HIV test and have a certificate, and then you'll be allowed entry.
Okay.
Now, we know very little about HIV at the time, if at all, except the sessions that we had attended, conducted by the World Health Organization to explain this thing. And it's still fuzzy. But it's a threat, you get it on Monday, you might not live to see the other Monday.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was also the advent of Ebola at the time. Now, with HIV, we go, we take the test. Nobody, I'm raising this from as a on the lighter side of life itself. Nobody has explained to us what positive and negative means.
Which one is which is which?
Which is good from the result point of view.
And positive has always been a good thing. Positive. Yes.
And the result, the technology was not as advanced today. Then you had to take the test and wait a week for the results.
Sometimes longer, yes.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah.
We are called back. We go in one by one. We go in. The guys come with this long face.
Hey. Jeez, there was a time when getting HIV results was a morbid.
We are sweating.
It was,
as they go in and out, and with these long faces, we are saying, "My God, what
times have changed."
This thing,
yeah.
And the long faces were merely because even the officer, then the medical practitioner that gave you the results, never explained the difference. He
Negative
just
and
gave you and
positive.
says, you are negative. Next. Now,
They were just doing their job.
negative is not good.
Never.
It can't be good. That's why the long face. Until one of us then says, Nako, what's this? I say negative at all.
What does that mean?
What does it mean negative? I don't know, sharp.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
All this time you're
So,
thinking,
that's what I say. Why long faces? But this is.
it's totally negative. Not.
But that's negative. But that's good. But if a good kanjani, I'm a result.
I'm a positive.
I don't know. Positive means you have it, and then it brightens. I'm raising it as one of those light moments
that you had to deal with.
That we had to deal with.
You have another light moment. I don't know when in the story does it fit perfectly with the ID.
The passport.
The passport. I'm not sure if you told this story because you and I have spoken so many times. I'm not sure if we've recorded this bit.
I can touch on it quickly.
Yeah, let's do that. Which country? Let's start.
Zambia.
There. Okay. Oh, then it fits perfectly.
Zambia, we had a comrade whose combat name I only knew as Javel.
Okay.
Who is deployed Go Airport, Zambia International Airport.
He's one of you.
He's one of us.
Yeah.
He's part of the Home Affairs. Yeah, yeah. That's where we get our passports, I guess.
But does he work for
the ANC?
ANC.
Yes. He's a cadre, he's an MK person whose job is to deal with our travel and can I issue and the passport.
Who pays his salary?
What salary?
Okay.
He gets 14 kwacha.
Okay. All right. And milmi.
And milli and all of that.
Yeah.
So
because I'm thinking maybe he works for the Zambian government.
No. He does this thing for us.
Okay. All
now,
right.
You are sent to Zambia, to Zimbabwe, and take my issue. I'm sent to Zimbabwe the first time.
Javel.
Yeah, passport go Javel. You go, you land Javel, UMET gives you a passport. You look at it. The first one said Ghanaian.
Okay.
And inside Theodore Johnson.
Okay. That's who you are now.
That's who I am going to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I have to quickly study, the passport, my date of birth, and all of that.
Understand it.
Yeah.
Internalize
it. And
jeez, I hope you don't forget.
And then I go through Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwean intelligence was always on the lookout, Go Airport. They were very efficient. So they would literally photocopy your passport and let you through and so forth. 2-3 weeks later, I'm sent back to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
I get to Javel. I expect the Ghanaian passport.
The John Johnson.
I feel as somebody else.
Oh boy.
Now they give me a Swazi passport.
So now you assume a new identity.
It's a new Mandla Nkosi Shabalala, something like that. Because that's what is on the passport. The difference is that picture, Johnson, by you can say, here.
Javel was inefficient.
The ANC was inefficient.
You confuse such things.
No, but I have to travel.
Yes.
I studied this thing.
Same airport.
Same airport.
Yeah.
I get onto the aeroplane. Planning as I study the passport. Honale a Swazi national who sits there and sees the passport and gets excited. Hey, guy, I'm now whatever we say. Comes and wants to chat. I'm in trouble.
You're not Swati.
I know nothing about your country. So I'm dismiss in my own way. Look, I'm tired. No, this hotel. That's exactly where I'm going.
I'll see you there.
Let's meet there and have a drink. And I knew I was not going to that hotel. But the challenge is that this mission, the second time where I have a Swazi passport, is much more trickier than the first one.
Okay.
The first one I traveled on my own. The second one, I'm traveling with 3 other people. And these are 3 highly trained assassins.
Yeah. They're part of you guys.
From Flak Plus.
How are they trained in Flak Plus?
Because they were Batuba Derkutsi and Eugene de Kock, who then defected to the ANC.
Are they black or white?
Chikalange is one of them. I don't know if you've heard of Chikalange. Two are white. Chikalange, who is black, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he took part in a lot of killing of our people.
Jeez.
The other one is Der Kutsia himself. Remember, Eugene de Kock takes from Der Kutsia go Flag Blast.
Yes.
It's Der Kutsia who defected. The third one is one called Martin Dolinchek.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of this name.
No.
Now,
The Der Kutsia name is known very well. But
now,
how do you trust this
I
guy?
don't.
Who's
I'm giving a mission. I'll tell you what is the mission.
Okay.
Now, Martin Dolinchek is one of the people who were arrested by the Tanzanian government because these are the mercenaries who are attempting a coup in Seychelles.
Sure. Okay.
So in terms of proximity, the Tanzanian army in defense of Seychelles goes there, and Martin Dolinchek gets captured or arrested.
Yeah.
Brought back, and he then says, I want nothing to do with the South African regime. I want to go and confess to the ANC. And that's how he's handed over to us.
I would not want anything to do with him.
Or the other 2.
Yes. Well, actually, all 3 of them.
But one of the things that I was asked to do with other comrades was to babysit these guys as they were confessing. So we were listening to the operations now of Flag Plus and in the senior echelons of the apartheid regime who knew what and. So that information is there, it's archived in the ANC and so forth. I'm going to leave it at that so that you get a picture.
Yeah.
Now, because they had been in the safe house for a very long time, a decision is taken that someone has to take them on vacation. I'm assigned the mission for some reason, odd reason. It could have been any other person. Now, I'm playing. And my agreement with them is that we don't know each other until we are in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
We've passed through the immigration airport and so forth. After the Swazi guy, they themselves had challenges of filling the small immigration
because they have new names too.
They have new names, and somewhere I don't understand what exactly is required, because those little forms can be tricky on what information.
If you watch the Australian show, Border Control,
then you'd understand.
How people just deliberately get it wrong sometimes. But yes.
Fast forward, we land. The ZCIO which is the intelligence of the Zimbabwe government, is always watching whatever is happening there. And they pick up these little things. Mara, when you fill your name, you look at the passport and the surname, your passport. You can't be doing that all the time. That's why you have to study.
It's a natural to have to check your name in an ID book.
Yeah. Now, what then I think catches their imagination are the two white people, because they were very, very, they were alert. Any white person that comes in, they would naturally say, watch these guys, give them mamba, but and so forth. I finish filling my forms and all of that. They are also watching me, because there's a telltale sign, body language between myself and these guys.
That there's a...
I can't leave them on that side of...
You have to wait, because
I have to wait.
You may pretend you're not with them, but you can't completely pretend.
Yes.
Because they're still part
of... But ba fela ba tsamaya.
And you guys are left.
They then, I think for some reason, recognized this face. Mara Emabel. Call that man.
I've seen him before.
And not so long ago. Every level, they take my passport, they look at it, and I realized I might be in trouble. But Umang.
Here's a man being asked, who are you?
But the passport, I know. But who are you? Hey, mine. And Kopenika, you forget small things like this.
Because you have to remember, which name am I using this time?
Yeah. Kirmandlenko, Shabala. But we're from Swaziland. But we know, but where in Swaziland? God.
Just so you know, it was a basic immigration question.
But because I'm panicking.
And they asked them exactly knowing that you're panicking.
And about body language tells it all.
When they take something out of your bag and it's nothing really, and they say straight in your eyes, what is this?
What is this? It's an apple, but you say now they then pull the photocopy of the Ghanaian passport.
Of the Johnson?
When you were Johnson.
Yeah,
when I was Johnson. They say, but didn't you? I offered them like some week or two ago. Me, it's my first time in this part of the country.
Jesus.
No, study tour. I'm studying the history of Africa and the interconnections. That's my story. That's my legend. But okay. They then give me this thing. The photocopy. I look at it. It's me.
Oh, they give you the Johnson.
The Johnson.
And they are holding the what's your Swati name?
Mandlenkos.
Mandlenkos
Shawala.
So they're saying there. Look at yourself.
Look at that. Hey, this guy looks like me.
You're obviously recognizing this flaw
the man.
In Javel's work.
But because it was a friendly country
to the
ANC,
yeah,
they then say, Endot, if we were not who we are and you were not who you are, we would be locking you up.
Yeah, because
fix this mess, Yalona. The passport.
Get your administration in order.
But the other challenge is that in the Mandlenkos Shabalala passport, the date of birth and my age don't match.
Is it a huge difference?
I think it was a 10-year difference.
So you can just look at the face
and say, Mara, you can't be born in
you can't be 50. You look
in 1944 and at that time, Jesus Christ,
too many errors. He was too busy.
It's a but he had these pressure. Everybody else travels and he has to pull this passport and say, so these are the challenges. Now the question is, who are those two white guys? No, I don't know them. But okay.
You don't see the need to declare at this point.
But okay, then we'll lock them up. The contrary, they are with me. I'm under pressure. What else can I do?
You didn't know that they're getting locked up.
But mission, I tell them whatever story. But okay, please fix your house.
Get your ass in
Get
order,
your
man.
ass in order
What's
and
wrong
so
with you
forth.
people?
The delay.
Which country is this? So we'll
This
always be
is
grateful.
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
This is Zimbabwe.
Amazing. You know, our Zim
despite
brothers.
despite all the flaws and then challenges that we had with them, but they were
a friendly friendly country.
In that sense, they came to the party.
Yeah.
They led us through, and our transport picking up is now panicking because everybody else is out. But who are confirmed the plane delay.
They're not out yet.
Why was that?
And we're dealing with relatively small airports. This is not some.
It's not
OR
Tambo or Cape Town or Shaka Zulu.
It's a Gabera. Not even. That's even big. It's Mafike.
That's
one plane every hour.
Plane, yeah, if you're lucky, every hour, one plane.
Once a day.
Yeah, once a day. So that's the story of some of the challenges.
Sure.
You can look at it from an anecdotal point of view, but it had its own risks.
Was it eventually, without telling a long story, an easy trip with these guys?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because I'm saying these are trained assassins.
Yeah.
Who are now in my care. And without the ANC saying to you, you can't lose these guys. You can't lose these guys.
Of course. Almost funny.
Do I book 3 separate rooms? How do I monitor them? Becomes a problem. The sleeping arrangement and all of that. Do I sleep peacefully with these guys here? We must go to the market, Kausani, walk, Bashapegimoya. They can run away. I don't have handcuffs. I have.
But they're not prisoners.
No, they are.
They're not.
Are they guests?
They're guests. They're guests of the
ANC.
Yes.
We appreciate the gesture of them coming over to say we are sorry.
However, you can't completely trust it.
No. That information had to be verified many a times. Some of it was really to the core on how this operation happened, who was ambushed, how did we know where to wait for you, how did we know about this arms catch being there. So you could tell that information was being disseminated from our part in exile. As to who then was disseminating is a bigger
mystery.
I don't think they would have known themselves.
Because the information just arrived.
It arrives
you don't
to
know
their
the source.
seniors.
Yes.
Then they are assigned a mission.
They are in Lusaka. They are in this house.
They are en route from Mafikeng or Swaziland, whatever border, going intercept.
So you don't know who started the story.
No, they wouldn't know.
It's a tough life,
which
though.
Posed a huge conundrum to us in the broader security cluster of the ANC to sift through.
Of course.
And narrow this thing. Who might it be?
Where do you start?
You may have a clue if you comb through, but how do you act on that information?
And how confident are you that this is the person?
This is the person. But remember, if, for instance, as an example, the investigations point to a very senior member of Umkhonto Sizwe in the frontline states, what then do you do?
Sure.
It's not your call. It becomes the call of your senior membership, either the NEC and the president to say, you know, this is the decision, or leave the person. It's
what a tough life.
It's a complex issue.
You're like a movie.
That aspect, Iwatla, other people who can articulate it better than me. I'm holding a lot back.
I can imagine, because there's a lot of details that may be sensitive to others.
Absolutely.
Where so and so was identified as a.
There's a lot that were identified. Hence, there is always this issue of former President Zuma talking about the list of spies.
Yeah, that it comes up a lot.
It comes, and I can say list of spies because he has mentioned it all his life. But that list of spies in itself caused a lot of consternation within the ANC.
I can imagine. This is long before power.
Because where does it come from? Who drafted this list of spies? Clearly, naturally, it would be a list that comes from the enemy because they know their people. But how did it arrive here? Are these questions that one would ask from time to time. But we know the stories that Barifitli Young. I can talk about that because then it creates another. I don't want to end up with these innuendos as if I am then accusing this.
However, it was known that there were spies because there were your members were being killed with information that was reliable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You thought you had your fellow cadres, but amongst the 10, 2 were spies. You don't know.
2 were spies. The Afrikaner regime, whether deliberately or truthfully, would then boast and say, for every 5 that skips the country, 2 are their members. If that is true, you realize the headache that we are sitting with.
It's a horrible, horrible number.
Perhaps it's not true. It could have been a propaganda to just destabilize us and create this mistrust amongst.
Because if 40% amongst you are spies,
it's a nightmare.
An uncomfortable scenario.
Huge nightmare. So the issue of this list 1, list 2, list 3.
Because they can easily just create a list.
They would create a list and
find and make sure that it gets into the hands of those that matter.
If, for instance, as an example, the list has got 20 names of various individuals at different levels of leadership, what the enemy in this line of work would naturally do, of the 20, they may put 4 or 5 that are authentic and real.
Okay.
For you in your investigations to find,
but the rest are
protecting, or the rest are
not really,
which then legitimizes
the list.
Kantiba are innocent people that they want you to look at and take action upon to destabilize. So you are sitting with this issue and says, how do I deal with this? What advice do we give leadership on how to deal with this thing? Because you need to be extremely cautious not to destroy people's lives.
Of course.
But you also cannot be casual about it because people may die.
You guys were dealing with a lot. And I can imagine how a former president Zuma would have a list because he was active in the security cluster. Whether the list is legitimate or not
is something else.
It's a different conversation.
Yes,
but it's understandable why he would have a list.
Yes, he
and I'm sure he's not the only one that knows of a list.
And it fits the narrative.
Absolutely.
he was part of the broader security cluster.
Yes.
I'd in the initial interview explained
in
four
detail.
categories
Yes,
and where he
exactly.
fits in and how he fits in and so forth, just to clear this thing, or the overall head of the ANC net, as it was called then.
What is net is?
National NAT, National Intelligence. They just called it net.
Okay.
Our overall head was John Tlandla.
Okay.
And the four pillars would then report to John Tlandla, who reports to the president and his mini cabinet there, the NEC or the security cluster within the NEC of the ANC. So it's the maybe let's park the list issue where it is right now.
It's comfortable space
it's
maybe one of the guys I'll talk to will be happy to tell about the list.
Good luck to him or her.
Not that I'm searching for the list. Imagine that. What a movie. The list.
Yeah, you see that. Sorry. The challenge with the list is that people are still alive.
I imagine, and they know they were bimbies in the system.
Yeah, some are innocent,
some are not.
Some are not. It's a reality. Let me give you an example. And I was not part of that and did not witness this because it happened before I got to Angola, a few years before I got there. Two incidences that I was told about, that here is a camp. I forgot which one is it. I think Nova Katenga, but the name does not matter. We had several camps in spread all over Angola. At any given time, you had a huge number of cadres in a camp, ranging between 500-600 to 800 at a time.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm saying a lot of people because it means a lot of people who are not in the country, in South Africa. They're in exile.
They're in exile.
Yes. Fighting for this freedom.
Yes. And I'm saying we had several
That's
camps,
the point I'm making. Yes.
And if one would take 500, 400, 600 at a time.
Collectively, it's thousands of people that are not only in Angola, in Lusaka, in other countries.
Tanzania,
in Russia.
In Russia, others are in the then German Democratic Republic, in Cuba, and so forth and so forth.
Okay.
Now, yes. There's an incident that happened in this particular camp where out of nowhere, after people having their meal at night, I think we were told that it was dinner, it could have been lunch, but they had just eaten. And they then began to suffer chronic diarrhea.
Oh, no.
Sweating.
It's a poisoning issue.
It is a poisoning issue.
Yeah.
When you poison so many people, and you then discover that out of the 400-500, 6-7 survived this because they did not eat. So they had prior knowledge that you can't
eat today.
When no one dies, God being merciful, and people begin to recover and so forth, they panic and realize that the questions are going to come.
Because these people are not meant to survive.
Mashabela, why when I was at Tsoraki? The diarrhea.
Even COVID did nothing to me.
So
it's that.
They panic and apparently they tried to run. And then they were caught.
The running exposes
their mission.
Exactly.
They get caught, they come back through normal interrogation. They then confess, yes, we worked for this and that, and then you explain when Zagaleni, and they give you the whole issue.
Sure.
What then do you do with such people? You are an army that is angry, that was almost wiped out by
these guys,
spies.
There's the 7.
What do you do?
The poison 7.
The poison 7. What do you do with these people?
Yeah.
I am bringing this story for a reason. That's the one incident. The second incident, we are also advised in another camp. Somebody is caught at our armory, with a plier answer the warhead, emptying the gunpowder,
the gunpowder, yes.
Filling it with sand, putting back the warhead,
rendering the explosives useless.
So if that happens and you are carrying your AK and your PKMs, you are driving, you are ambushed,
you
are sitting there, you
yes. What?
I'm also advised that some would then take the very bullets or the cartridges and boil them. Apparently that
what does it do?
Apparently it renders the bullets useless.
Yes, something.
I was told I'm not a scientist in all of that. I don't know what
I'll be afraid to boil them because they might explode in the pan, in the pot.
But for them to know what to do, it means they had prior knowledge from the regime how to do this and so forth.
And is there knowledge at this stage within all these movements, the ANC all over the world, that the regime is working really, really hard with its own intelligence? 1, 2, with science, because the regime was ahead.
It was well ahead. Remember,
100 years ahead.
They are in constant dual training with Israel, with Mossad.
That too,
which is highly advanced in these tactics.
It remains that way today.
Highly advanced in these tactics. So they would train the South African regime on methods of torture and all of that. So even the poisons, which ones to use, and our belief is that that collaboration assisted the regime and kept it in power and targeting the ANC government.
But are you, as the ANC that is now in these countries, conscious of our threat is getting more and more advanced?
Of course we are, because this information gets to be part of the political education to make our own people aware on the methods employed by the enemy to destroy the ANC, to incapacitate it, etc., etc.
You can't eat now. We can't eat. We're afraid of our food.
MCW comes into play, the military and combat work. Be constantly aware of the people you are with, the surroundings, small things that changes in your behavior makes me say, he's not the
same guy.
The same guy that but you can't run into conclusion and say because then therefore no. You have to continuously monitor, because sometimes what you see is actually not correct.
And sometimes it's just a figment of your own
imagination.
Yes.
It's the panic, it's mistrust, and so the enemy would also do that to unsettle us amongst ourselves, to create this web of mistrust.
I don't want this to take as long as the first one.
Okay,
let's go to Angola. What are you doing in Angola?
In Angola, we see one thing and one thing only: military training.
Okay, so that. But how is it similar to Zambia? How are you received as ANC in Angola?
You land in Luanda, in Angola, first as new recruits who are going to the camps. There's a transit camp there in Luanda called Vienna, where the next set of processing happens and so forth and so forth. And then they prepare you to take you to any of the 10 camps that are spread all over. Now, these trucks that takes you there are equally trucks that would take other logistic issues to the camps. You know, weapons, medication, food, and yourselves. Give or take, some of the camps from Luanda are plus minus 800 kilometers. So you are in the thick of the Angolan bushes. The problem is the road is itself not.
It's gravel.
Ke dikoloi.
Yes.
Wa bona mo dikoloi di tsamayang gagolo mo hlatheng, it creates those two-track things. There's a constant threat in the stretch of an ambush. We are fighting UNITA that targets us because it is fighting their own battles with
the government,
Dos Santos, and they see us as an ally and therefore a target.
Naturally. And you have resources.
And when we have resources, America wants us destroyed because we are an ally of Russia that trains us supplies us with weapons and so forth and so forth. So the issue of communism versus that comes into play. We become a proxy.
You become terrorists.
Yes.
As you have been labeled for a long, long time.
Our camps are in both the east of Angola and the north. The south is predominantly a headquarters of Jonas Savimbi, UNITA. And it's strategic for them because it's a border between Angola and Namibia. And
right close by.
And South Africa is occupying Namibia at that time. So they are closing SWAPO's passage into
by being there.
But also that south is rich in diamonds.
Okay.
So your South African regime mafia in the diamond trades would then go in there to give Savimbi support in return for, so would the Americans and the Israelis would also get access to mining.
We remember Jonas Savimbi very well.
So you would know. Now, I'm saying the road is perilous. But when you get to the camps, you realize this is now a different environment. This is the real army. This is people who are in uniform and
all the time.
Yeah. And there's an AK-47 up close and personal.
The sound of it is always it's constant.
Yeah. You get there, you are then introduced, commander and so forth and so forth. You are told the formation, how to stand and so forth and so forth. You are given your training uniform and boots. And you are given a then schedule of training.
You're in the military.
You are now in the military. There's protocols. And one thing that was always constant is the running. As a new recruit, it was rare to find a new recruit just walking in the camps.
From one point to another.
The other.
From here to the gate.
You have to run all the time. And it's hot in Angola, quite frankly. The mercury sometimes reaches 48, 49. It's
the center of the planet.
Yes. The training was not, physical training was not easy. And especially if amongst you, and I'm not saying it from a sexist point of view, if you have women trainees amongst you, it becomes even more challenging from a physical training point of view. We dreaded one exercise called number 9.
You mentioned it, but I think we had
whatever.
stopped recording then.
Yeah,
Yes.
number 9
Is it the
ke squat.
Yes.
Now, if you are there's an uphill, the training instructor would be up there. You have to squat from here and then go up to him, squat. And because you are training, they can't give you a real AK-47. They give you a wooden one. And you have to always protect it as if you are married to this. All of this is to instill discipline in you. You, after a particular period, a few months of the physical training, although you'd be in as you train, you'd then be taught something around engineering, tactics, firearms, artillery, etc., etc. There comes a time where they would then group you and say, Mashabela, you'll be part of the engineering group to specialize in firearms, tactics, artillery, politics, etc., etc. You are now working towards the end of your training, where you will graduate and get a proper uniform. Now you are an officer, etc., etc. And as you get these compartmentalization, you'll be taken to the shooting range. At least you'll have a taste of an AK-47, shoot and be told and be trained on the science behind weapons and bullets and its flight and all of that. When you finish, there are others who were chosen, or whether they had an option to do what was called a survival course. That's more rigorous. You'd go on a 60 or 90 day outside the camp into the real bush and survive for survival. I didn't get a chance to do that. But those who had done it would then say to us, sometimes both the biscuits, these brown ginger ones, how hard they are. Something like that. These were Russia. Maybe it's a Second World War. That's how hard they are. Plus condensed milk. So that combination, you create that unbearable thirst. Now,
you get thirsty thinking about it.
as part of that survival training, and all of this, really the center of all of this is discipline. You travel, you are thirsty. Maybe metziachau in your bottle or juice bottle, water bottle. You come across a flowing river. Because in the army, you don't just do, you seek permission to do anything. Permission to eat. They say, no, you can't go to the... Not now. Lalebona metsi so thirsty, you can't rush and go in there until the commander gives you permission to do so. Sure. So he or she may say, Emampele, I know you guys are thirsty, but information I have is that this water might be poisoned. And it's bullshit because metsi are running.
They're running fast.
You're like I poison metsi amata. And otla khaena the deputy, the commissar, and say, in your interest, let's drink first, so that if the poison hits, it kills us first. You do know that it's
nonsense.
It's nonsense, but can you defy this instruction or not becomes, the whole issue. Then they would drink and maybe take a siesta before they allow you to. And when they wake up, they would say, no, kushuti lamanza right. You guys go.
We slept and
and
woke
then
up.
Repeat.
We're good.
So that's part of the intensity of all of these things. And when you finish that, clearly you might be selected for specialized missions.
You're worthy.
You are worthy. You'd go to what they used to call special operations. Your Bani Mulokwane comes from the special ops. They would hit targets such as Sasol, because planning those missions is really quite intense. And you need a particular cadre to assign such missions. So there were those categories of A people and their training.
King David Studio Podcast.